Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to our program, Medicine of the Prophet, your guide to healthy living. I'm your host, Farooq Hussain, and we're busy with our 11th episode. And in this episode, we'll be looking at the concept of sleep and wakefulness. You're with Professor Rashid Bhika in the studio, as well as our guest, Dr. Joy Saville. Welcome, Dr. Joy Saville, and thank you, Professor Bhika, as our prime mover for researching this project. Now, in this program, we'll be raising several issues and looking at how sleep is a major factor in maintaining physical and mental health. We'll also offer some practical advice on sleep hygiene, of course, in relation to wakefulness, and we'll look at how it supports people of different temperaments in their goal for optimum health. The take-home message in this episode is to encourage viewers to ensure quality sleep in relation to wakefulness, as well as the consequences of any excess sleep or otherwise very little sleep. And so, as we're looking at the prophetic traditions on sleep, as well as the qualities of sleep and wakefulness, I should like to direct the conversation now to Professor Bhika and ask Professor Bhika, Prof, what are the prophetic traditions that are linked to sleep? And what is the wisdom, Prof, behind this tradition? After all, sleep is sleep. I can never have enough of it.
Jazakallahu khair, Farooq. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I think the challenge of this day and age, in the days of TV, in the days of internet, the days of all these electronic toys that we have, sleep debt is becoming a major problem and the reason for the consequence of many, many illness conditions. So, without a doubt, sleep debt and the way it is described, one cannot possibly undermine or underpin or underestimate its impact on health. Now, as you've mentioned, what are the prophetic traditions? So let me again begin with a quotation from Suyuti's Medicine of the Prophet, wherein it is said, sleep has two benefits. Firstly, repose from fatigue or exertion of wakefulness. And secondly, it facilitates digestion of food and also assists in the decoction of the humus or the body fluids. For the innate heat during sleep moves vigorously to the interior of the body. Therefore, its exterior is cooled, and this is why the sleeper needs a great deal of covering. So, from this particular extract, this quotation, obviously there are two components. Sleep is essential, and it is a balancing component between wakefulness. So, as much as the person is awake for 16, 18 hours a day, you also need to keep that harmonious balance. And remember, in tip medicine, we've always spoken about balance. So to keep that ideal balance, for the excessive awakening, you need that amount of sleep. Of course, the benefit from it and the wisdom behind it is because during sleep, while we are asleep, it gives the body, or as you mentioned in the earlier program, the inherent wisdom, the doctor within, Physis, the ability of what we call the cleaning up operation. While we're sleeping, our whole body is at rest. Physis has got the ability to take all the required energy and make sure that whatever needs to be filed away, we talk about during the sleep process, all the emotional, mental activities, everything gets filed away in our brain, in the mental capacities are restored. Similarly, your physical body with the sleep is also restored. Whatever damage that may have taken place during the day, exposure to toxins, overeating, all of this is a time when the body has to reorganize itself and make you ready and fresh. So invariably when we get up the following morning, we're feeling good and we're feeling ready, that if we've had enough sleep that we need.
Well, I can almost hear the voices of my home education, with my father saying to us constantly, early to bed, early to rise makes the person healthy, wealthy, and wise. I've seen evidences of a little bit of all three of that. It's interesting, Prof, that you spoke about the prophetic tradition saying that one can sleep at noontime in the heat of summer, for instance.
So, yes, again, this is one of the traditions which I'll come to a bit later. Because again, yeah, it's also meant to be sleeping in the mid-afternoon, especially in summer when the days are long, and also when it's in excessive heat. Okay, generally sleeping in the afternoon is not really overly required in winter, as it is the days are short. So yes, definitely in summer, that afternoon sleep, and there has been a lot of research done showing the value of sleep in the afternoon, especially in summer.
Well, science or scientists on sleep are actually suggesting a good power nap during lunchtime, especially when you're in a high pressurized environment. It'd be useful to draw in Dr. Joy Saville and to just ask your view on as you mentioned in the previous program on the question of lifestyle factors. Around the issue of the aspects of heat and coldness and moistness, which you discussed in those earlier programs. Now, what are the physiological changes that result from the qualitative effect of sleep and wakefulness? I mean, surely there must be some qualitative effect on sleep. Can you have enough sleep ever? And what is enough sleep? It's like asking, I suppose, how long is a piece of string?
Yeah, well, firstly, if we look at the qualities of sleep, sleep is cooling and moistening, okay? Because sleep is a restorative process, things need to start slowing down so that the body can start regenerating and restoring damaged cells and destruction that happens during the course of the day. If we look at physiological changes to support these qualities, we know that brainwave activity starts slowing down. We know that muscle activity starts to become more relaxed. Our breathing becomes slower and deeper. Our blood pressure drops. And so all these physiological changes happen in support of these qualities of cooling and moistening. Even something like morning breath. We all, most of us, because of our diets as well, have morning breath. And so what happens during morning breath is the saliva flow starts slowing down. Sometimes it even stops completely. There's mucus buildup in the nasal cavities, and bacteria then grow in this mucus. Okay, so again, we can just see how amazing the pioneers of medicine were. They didn't have all the technology, but they knew that there were certain processes that happened in the body, and so they could allocate these qualities to sleep.
Well, it never fails to amaze me how so many things were suggested in earlier years and are now being verified by science through rigorous scientific experiments. We'll be going for a short break now. And when we return, we'll be looking at the whole question of the benefits of sleep as well as the consequences of too little or too much of sleep. Please stay with us. Welcome back. We're discussing the question of sleep and its restorative value. And thank you for staying with us. In the studio with me is Dr. Bhika as well as Dr. Joy Saville. And Dr. Joy Saville spoke about the physiological changes that result from qualitative sleep and wakefulness. Now, it'd be useful to ask Professor Rashid Bhika then, if that is true, Prof, how does this then relate to sleep requirements of different individuals? I mean, I have one son who can wake up quite easily, he's a light sleeper. I have another child who enjoys his sleep as much as I do.
Well, again, I mean, everything boils down to the aspect of temperament. And it's true, some people can manage and be very comfortable with only 5 hours of sleep, and other people just need 8, I mean, as you have rightfully mentioned. So without a doubt, it's linked onto the temperamental requirement of the person. Let's just quickly do a recap on the temperament aspect. remember the person who says sanguinous or bilious, they've got a lot of heat in their particular system. Now, sleep has got a cooling effect. All right. So the aspect of the cooling effect of sleep will produce it only up to a point, and then the person doesn't need that much more sleep to maintain that heat level that the person needs. Because the person has got heat, and too much sleep will not be the person doesn't need too much sleep.
Okay.
Whereas a person who say phlegmatic, now that person has got a higher level of moistness. Now, to maintain that higher level of moistness, this person needs at least 8 hours of sleep. That will be ideal for him or her. All right. So you see the correlation. The person who is hot doesn't need that much sleep, but the person who is moist needs that extra sleep because of the cooling effect.
So the hot person who is hot, by definition, will be characterized by not wanting to wear lots of clothing, lots of jackets during cold weather.
Exactly.
And you may worry about it, but he'd say, no, I'm hot, I'm okay.
I'm fine, yes.
Okay,
yes.
so that's a light sleeper.
Yes. Now the hot person is definitely a light sleeper. And more so is the person who is melancholic, cold. Now this person, because of the cold and dry nature of this person, you'll find that these persons, unfortunately, are the insomniacs. Okay, and now much at the time sleep, and we know so often that for a good night's sleep, you need a hot cup of milk, because a hot cup of milk would then bring that additional moisture and heat on the person, and of course the sleep senses in the brain are all here. So this calms the person down, and the person can have obviously a good night's sleep. Just to put this into perspective, let me tell you the different requirement of sleep for the different temperaments. Bilious and melancholic temperaments, because of the temperament, require between 5 and 6 hours of sleep. Sanguinous person needs between 6 and 7, and the phlegmatic person needs at least about 8 hours of sleep. Having said that, but the phlegmatic person, more than 8 hours of sleep will increase the moistness, and that will not be very ideal for them. So that gives you an idea. Each person is different, each person is unique, and the sleep patterns required are obviously linked onto the temperament of the person.
Well, that's wonderful, because now I understand my children much better now.
Good.
I'll be less judgmental about, them sleeping too much or too little. Now, I suppose, Dr. Joy Saville, you might want to clarify for us a little bit more around, what happens when you get too much of sleep or too little sleep.
Oversleeping increases moistness, but it causes excessive moistness. We've all overslept some other time in our lives, and we know that when we get up, we feel really sluggish and lethargic. We don't feel energized, and that's because of that excess moistness. Sometimes we have this dull headache, and that's largely because of the mucus buildup in our sinuses. But chronic oversleeping can have some serious effects. It can cause obesity because we're not using the energy, which is storing energy. Like I said, chronic headaches, even back pain, largely because of the posture, because we're lying on one position for a long period of time. And it can even have even more complex and complications, such as heart disease. They don't really know why heart disease. They think it's because of the obesity, and that can obviously lead to death. Whereas lack of sleep, this increases dryness. And the same, too much or too little of something is not good, and so this also has health, it's also detrimental to your health. So with a lack of sleep, sleep is really, it's needed for mental function, it's needed for concentration and alertness, and so very often we're not able to focus and to focus as we should if we're not getting the sleep that we need.
So would you recommend a reasonable amount of sleep for creativity as well?
Exactly. Sleep is essential for all functioning and processes of our body, including our mental functioning.
So I suppose it supports what you said, that it has a restorative value, and the restorative value also has an effect on productivity and clarity of focus in your thinking and also in your decision making. Then.
Exactly, Fred.
Wonderful. Well, in support of what you have said, we have for our viewers a clip by Dr. John Glynn, who will be talking, in fact, on the benefits of sleep.
One of the major influences on health is good quality sleep. The advantages of sleep are evident at 3 levels. First of all, at the physical level, we find that it has a positive effect in things like sorting out heart problems. It contributes to that. It also helps in recuperation from conditions like cancer. It supports people with diabetes, and it also has a positive effect on the aging process. At the mental level, you've got improved emotional input, in the sense that people are far more relaxed, they work better, and also their potential for learning is increased. Finally, there is the thinking processes are enhanced. At the spiritual level, we have improved harmony in the body-mind relationship, and we also have a better harmonization with the community and with the family, etc.
Dr. John Glynn sharing with us his views on the benefits of sleep. In this segment, we've looked at the physiological changes that occurs during sleep and wakefulness, and the need, in fact, for proper sleep and understanding how temperament affects sleep. We'll be going for a short ad break now, but when we return, we'll be looking at some specific advice on healthy sleeping habits, both from the prophetic medicine and also a common sense approach. So stay with us, please don't go away. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. If you've just joined us, the program is Medicine of the Prophet, your guide to healthy living. In the studio with me is Professor Rashid Bhika, and our guest is Dr. Joy Saville. We're looking at sleep and wakefulness and its restorative value. In this episode, we're also going to be now looking at the advice that both Dr. Joy Saville and Professor Bhika can offer us on healthy sleeping habits, both from a prophetic tradition as well as from a common sense approach, for want of a better term. And so I'd like to pose the question to Dr. Joy Saville and draw you in, Doctor. Can you advise the viewers on good sleeping habits? What does it entail?
Okay, so to promote good sleep or to promote good quality sleep, because it's not only about the length of time that you sleep, it's also about the quality of sleep that you get. And so you need to have proper sleep hygiene.
Why is that important? Are there any patterns in the sleep?
Well, I mean, we know that, when you have irregular sleep, when, you're waking up during the night, you don't feel refreshed in the morning. Your energy levels are low. You can't function to your full capacity as you normally would. And so you need to promote good sleep hygiene.
So when is the deepest sleep that you can enjoy?
Sorry?
When is the deepest sleep that you can enjoy?
The deepest sleep is usually just before midnight, but that only happens if you go to bed between 9 and 10 o'clock. Okay, because there's different stages of sleep, and your deep sleep happens between your 3rd and 4th stage. So you still need to go through stage 1 and 2 before you can get to 3 and 4.
I think my sister and her husband would really love you for that. They're early sleepers.
Oh, that's excellent. So firstly, you need to plan to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Okay, and like I said, best time to go to sleep is between 9 and 10 in the evening. Best time to rise is before 6 a.m. in the morning.
Well, I need to take that advice seriously. I'm not too bad at waking up. I have to for morning prayers.
Okay, that's excellent.
But evening time, I'm a bit bad.
Yes. So the next thing is you need to wake up at the same time every morning, irrespective of the time that you've gone to bed the night before. So whether you go to bed at 9 or if you go to bed at 12, you still need to get up at the same time every morning. Obviously, with morning prayers, there is a change in the time, but it's, it's gradual change, so that's fine. That's fine. As long as it's not, waking up at 6 and then the next day waking up at 10, because that will throw out your sleep-wake cycles.
Yes.
Okay, something else that you can do is also be consistent with your meal times. Eat an hour at least within the first hour after waking up, and don't eat anything 3 hours before going to bed, okay, because this will have a stimulant effect on the body, so it will keep your mind a little bit more active. Okay, another thing is exercise, as we've discussed in the previous episode. Being active during the day makes you more relaxed at night. Okay, so you want to, in a sense, you want to exhaust your body so that you are tired enough to go to bed at night and have a good night's rest. Another important thing for sleep hygiene is use your bedroom for sleep only. Okay, so don't sit on the bed and read or watch TV, as many of us like to do. Okay, your bedroom needs to be for sleep, and if you are married, for marital activities, but for nothing other than that.
So the bedroom must be a haven of peace.
Exactly, it must be your little sanctuary. If you do have problems with, overthinking, then try and do some relaxation exercises. So breathing exercises, the slow and deep breathing exercises, as we've already discussed, that also promotes cool and moist qualities, just like sleep, so that relaxes you. If you are a thinker and you just have too many thoughts popping up at night, keep a journal. Write down all your thoughts, okay? It's called brain dumping. Dump all your thoughts in the journal so that it doesn't keep you out of sleep at night.
Very interesting.
Okay.
There's so many things that one can do, and very restorative stuff. For instance, when I had done some work in the inmates of a jail, I told them to press their fingers together like this, and which will help them sleep and also to calm them down. So there are many different exercises, and I'm very appreciative of that. I should now like to just ask Professor Bhika, what advice, Prof, can you give from a Tib al-Nabawi perspective on good sleeping habits? I need to know this. Yeah.
Look, I think that there are a number of pieces related to sleep, among which I'll just go to them quickly. Avoid sleeping on your back, and more particularly on the tummy, because obviously this is going to affect digestion. Avoid sleeping between Fajr and sunrise, and between Asr and Maghrib. And it is said that between Asr and Maghrib, sleeping at that time is not very healthy in terms of the brain, in terms of the cognitive aspects. Then practice sleeping, or do wudu before sleeping, and sleep on the right hand side, which promotes digestion and is beneficial for the heart. Obviously, when you sleep on the right hand side, your stomach is so placed that it just assists in the flow of material from the stomach into the colon. But early on, you mentioned something very interesting. The saying of early to bed and early to rise makes a person healthy, wealthy, and wise. Now, obviously, the healthy part makes sense because you get up early, the morning is fresh. Wise, it also makes sense because your brain is alert. But this part about wealthy. Now, I found an interesting hadith, by Abdullah bin Abbas. When his son was sleeping in the early part of the morning, he said, "Wake up, because this is the time when worldly sustenance is being apportioned." So this hadith tells us, and somehow it fits in so nicely with being healthy, wealthy, and wise. So this is why sleeping in the early morning part, we should avoid it, because that's the time of sustenance. Okay. Now, I found that very interesting.
Fascinating, because obviously, the whole world cycle, in different parts of the world, there are different hours, time frames, and whatnot. But where you're based, that's where the money is being made at that time, and not late at night. Dr. Joyce Saville, any closing comments on this most intriguing topic of sleep and its restorative value? Who would have thought that sleep is so important? I know it's enjoyable.
Yes, yes, it is incredibly important. And again, just touching on what I've said earlier on about going to bed at a certain time like that and waking up at a certain time, it's also important to note that between 10 and 1, so 10 o'clock in the evening and 1 in the morning, that's when your level of growth hormone increases and your level of cortisol, which is your stress hormone, it decreases. So that's why that part of the evening is essential to get the benefits of sleep, the optimal benefits of sleep. It's important to be asleep during that period of time, because you won't receive the benefits of the shift in hormones if you're not asleep.
And these hormones, if they're in excess or if they're under, then they have an impact on different types of illnesses.
Especially something like cortisol. Like I said, it's your stress hormone. So obviously if it's in excess, you will have...
Can lead to sugar, diabetes,
can
maybe.
lead to many
heart
physical manifestations. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. And Professor Bhika, any closing thoughts on this topic?
Yes, in fact, I want to just share this part with it. There's a hadith in Bukhari narrated by Al-Bara bin Azib that when a person goes to sleep at night, obviously ideally during wuzu, and when you turn on the right hand side, it's a very beautiful saying, very beautiful prayer. Oh Allah, I submit my soul to you, I've entrusted my affairs to you, I can go to none but you for refuge and hope and fear. And this is ultimately the essence of a Muslim's life in this world. It's a balance between hope in Allah's mercy and fear from Allah's punishment. So I think it's a very beautiful saying. I think this is something we should try and encourage, that before we go to sleep, do wuzu, turn on the right hand side and say this beautiful prayer.
What a wonderful note on which to end a day. And also, of course, we start the day with a prayer and mindful of the power and the glory of Allah and of God, and the mercy of God, and the mercy of Allah also at the end is declared. Of course, some people also say, oh Allah, give me good dreams as well, because, in the hope that they will have a good restful sleep. This has been Medicine of the Prophet, your guide to healthy living, and I'm your host, Farooq Hussain. In sum, what we have been looking at was sleeping according to the needs of your temperament, ensuring that you get a sufficient amount of good quality sleep, and the consequences of excess sleep or excess wakefulness. In our next program, we'll be looking at managing and taking control of your emotions, and this will be discussed in the program to follow in the weeks ahead. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.